Bum 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 bum. Just chat with Uncle Dominic.
Oh, good morning and welcome to Just Chat with Uncle Dominic. Today is our show a little bit early in the morning, but we have a special guest. Our guest is Terry Tucker. Let's welcome him.
Hey, Dominic, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Thank you. So let me introduce a little bit about Terry. Uh, so everyone, pay attention. All right. So Terry Tucker, he has been an NCAA Division One college basketball player, a great achievement there. A Citadel cadet, a marketing executive, and hospital administrator, an undercover narcotics investigator. Just imagine that, an undercover man. Look at that. And he is a SWAT team hostage negotiator. Man, that's a pretty interesting one right there. I will talk about that later. A high school basketball coach, a business owner, a motivational speaker, and author, and most recently a cancer warrior. So he has beaten cancer. He's also the author of a book called Sustainable Excellence: The 10 Principles to Living Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life. So Terry and his wife and his family has lived all over America and currently reside in Colorado, Denver, with their daughter and Wheaton Terriers. I think Wheaton Terrier is a dog, right?
It is.
Okay. And Maggie. And in 2019, Terry started this website, Motivational Check, and he's doing it to help others find their uncommon and extraordinary lives. So there we go. That is Terry Tucker. So everyone welcome him. And Terry, do you want to add anything to yourself?
No, you did a heck of a job. I like that. I guess I will add. So I played basketball in college, and so I'm 6'8" tall, and that always begs the question with, well, how did you do undercover narcotic work when you're 6'8"
Right. So that
tall?
was what I was gonna ask you. Like you're huge.
Yeah, and my answer to that is pretty simple. That industry, and it certainly is an industry, is motivated by greed. And as long as you have money, really doesn't matter how tall or short or thin or fat or whatever you are, you're going to find somebody who can sell you drugs. So
Right.
that's how I did it.
Okay. I do want to focus on one of the aspects that you mentioned earlier, that you're a hostage negotiator. Now, when I think of that, I think of Denzel Washington because he is like, to me, he's like he negotiate life in the way he talks. So I don't know. When I look at you, I can't imagine you're a hostage negotiator. So because I'm thinking of Denzel Washington. So how do you do it? Like how do people do it at all?
So yeah, I always get asked. There was a movie I don't remember back in the '90s called The Negotiator, and
Right,
Samuel
right,
L.
right.
Jackson was the negotiator. And I always get, is that what it's like? No, that's not what it's like. The way it works, it's a team concept. So yes, there's one person negotiating, but then there's somebody sitting right next to them. Excuse me. That's basically passing them notes. They're listening and they're like, you know, and then there's another group of people that are kind of working the crowd, gaining intelligence. So you may be negotiating with somebody and you'll get a note that'll say, don't talk about his mother, because the reason he's barricaded is because he had a fight with his mom. And so you don't want to bring that up and make him more upset. So it's very much a team effort in terms of how we do this. Yes, there's one person negotiating, but there's kind of a group of other people that are providing intelligence, that are providing notes and thoughts. So we couldn't do it by ourselves. It's too intense to do by
So
yourself.
which one are you? Are you the one talking or are you the one passing notes?
Both. I've been the person talking. I've been the person passing notes. I've been the person working the crowd.
Ah.
Trying to get information. Why are we here? What's going on? So everybody kind of does everybody else's job. There's not just one person doing one thing.
So, in this case, do you have a choice though? So if you're the one talking and someone passes you your notes, I'm not gonna read this note. I'm not gonna do it. Does it ever happen?
Not really. I mean, we're pretty close with each other. We train every month together, and we go through different scenarios. We work with a psychologist and things like that. So we all want the same outcome. We want a successful resolution.
Hmm.
So I mean, you may get a note, and and say, you kind of look at the person, because the person isn't seeing you, like you and I are seeing each other. Person isn't seeing you, so you maybe look at them like, what do you mean, or something like that, and and try to get more information, because if you just sometimes people scribble something, and it's like, especially if they're really bad handwriting, it's like I can't read this. I need, you kind of sign for give me more. I need more information than that, and they'll go back and try to get it and stuff like that. So
Okay.
it's
So it's the teamwork. So that's good. That's good.
teamwork.
Yeah.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
There we go. That's right. So let's go to our today's topic. When life hits you hard, what do we do and what can we do? So we have Terry here with us, with Uncle Dominic, to discuss about this, and so we can figure out what can we do, right? So let me start with a quote. It says here, I'll read it out so Terry can listen to it. Life hits you hard, but it takes you 3 seconds to decide if you are a superhero or not. And he says, I am. So one more time. Life hits you hard, but it takes you 3 seconds to decide if you are a superhero or not. I am. Okay, Terry, what do you think about that quote, Terry?
I think it took me a little longer to figure that out. When I was diagnosed with this rare form of cancer, I kind of looked at my life like I'd done everything right. I'd had a physical exam, I'd eaten right, I'd been an athlete, I'd exercised, I'd not abused alcohol and drugs, and yet I was diagnosed with this very rare form of cancer. And when my doctor, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I went to it appeared for me on the bottom of my foot. So I went to a podiatrist, a foot doctor, and he was a friend of mine. And, like I said, I don't know if that was good or bad, because when he had to tell me the news, he was having difficulty telling me. And so the more difficulty he was, the more frightened I was becoming, until he just got to the point where he's like, Terry, I've been a doctor for 25 years. I have never seen this form of cancer. You have a very rare form of melanoma. I think you should go to this particular hospital here in the States and be treated. And, then you kind of go through the gambit of emotions. You're scared, you're mad, you're depressed. And then you get to that point where you're like, you know what? These are the cards that I've been dealt, and I have to play them. I have to play them to the best of my ability. And I always say that we're all going to experience pain in our lives. And it doesn't have to be cancer pain like mine. You could flunk a test at school, or break up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or not get the promotion at work that you think you deserve. Pain is inevitable. Suffering, that's optional. That's what you do with that pain. Do you use it to make you stronger, or do you wallow in it and want people to feel sorry for you and, feel sorry for yourself? Now, don't get me wrong. There's no S on my chest. I do not wear a cape and fly around with magical powers. I have bad days. There are days when I cry. There are days when I get down. I just don't let myself stay there.
Okay. So when I was looking at your bio earlier, before as well, I think you lead a pretty good life. Like you had a lot of things happening in your life, and then you had this cancer. So I guess by the looks of it, it feels, because I don't know a lot about your life, but from my perspective, I'm looking at, you had a good life, and then this hits you hard. I guess, it hits you hard. You had to lose your leg. I can't imagine me losing my leg, and you get cancer. So it's like either life or death, right? So that hits you hard. Do you ever question it though? Like for me, if something bad hits me immediately, I'm like, why me? Why? And I'm like, I get angry and frustrated. But then after a while, I pick myself up, and then it goes, life moves on. But so in your case, this is way harder than what I've experienced in my life. So what happened to you? Like, did you actually okay, so it's just a cancer, I'm just going to overcome it and move on? Or you actually get really down?
I have gotten really down when my initial treatment was to remove the tumor in the bottom of my foot, and then all the lymph nodes in my left groin. And then when I healed, I was put on a weekly injection of a drug called interferon. And what interferon basically did for me was it gave me severe flu-like symptoms for 2 to 3 days every week after each injection. And I took those weekly injections for almost 5 years. So imagine
Oh
having the
man.
flu every week for 5 years. And do you get down? Hell yeah, you get down. I mean, are there just days where, I can't get off the couch, or I'm so sick of throwing up? There were days, literally, Dominic, that I prayed to die. That it was just like, this sucks so bad that I just want to die. But I didn't die. And so, you come back stronger. You come back and you realize that I can do more. There are things that there was a study done back in the 1950s with a professor who took rats and he put them in water over their head, and he wanted to see how long they could tread water. And most of the rats treaded water for about 15 minutes. And just as they were going under, he grabbed them and he pulled them out. He dried them off and he let them rest for a while. And then he put them back in the same tank with water over their head. And those rats, the second time, treaded water for 60 hours. So initially, 15 minutes. That's all I can do. 15 minutes. That's it. I'm going to drown. Nope, I'm going to pull you out. What that said to me were two things. One, the importance of hope in our lives. We have to have hope. And two, how much more our bodies can do than we ever think they can do. Our bodies can do so much more than we ever thought that they could do, as evidenced by these rats. Initially, I can only tread water for 15 minutes. The second time, I can tread water for 60 hours. That to me was just an amazing study, and kind of says a little bit about how the limits we have in our lives are the limits that we put on ourselves.
That is true. I feel like, because I'm an educator in school, like I tell my students sometimes, you are putting a limit to yourself. You're telling yourself you can't do it, and I believe you can. Just recently, I had two interesting experience the past 2 weeks, well, including today, including this week. The previous week, I had one student who came to me and says, "I can't do this. I'm everyone hates me. I don't think I'm doing well. I'm just gonna quit this course," which is my course. I'm like, "No, you're a great student. You should be doing it. You can do it. I seen you do it." I told him all the good stuff that he has done. He just didn't see it, and he went home. He told his parents, and I guess his parents is more like, "Okay, if you don't want to do it, then we just quit." And I got the bad news the next day that he quit the course. I'm like, "No, he could have gone further." And so I try to talk to him. He says, "No, so there's nothing I can do. Like, everyone has their agency, right?" And just yesterday, I had another experience with another person, another kid, another student. We had a presentation, and he was supposed to do it. I've given the students 2 weeks to prepare their presentation. And he came up to me yesterday and says, "Dominic, I can't do it." And then so I was like, "No, you can. You just have to go up, read your notes. You are allowed to read your notes, and go on from there. An easy topic." He went up. He just stood there blankly, and just looked at me, and pretty much gave up on stage. I'm like, "No, you can do it. Just read it." But he's not doing it. And so after that, I was like, "Okay, just say thank you and go down." And he said thank you, and he went down. I talked to him again. He says, "No, I'm not gonna do this. This is not gonna work for me." I was like, "You can't just give up like this. Everyone tries. Everyone did it. It's terrible for the first time. That's okay. I'm not taking away your grades for that. I'm just giving you an opportunity to stand up and share." Unfortunately, he felt it was too much, and he gave up. And I'm still in conversing with him still today, even now, earlier this morning. And I messaged him and says, "You can do it. I'm sure you can do it. Just have to keep trying," right? So I know that things that hit you hard, Terry. For me, I noticed my students have got a hidden heart with their educational. And so I'm trying to be the little spark of life, trying to, a hope, like you said, right? Like doctor, to lift up the rats, to give them a little bit of hope. So I try to put that into my students, be the one to give them a little bit of hope. But sometimes, they gave up. So in your case, Terry, who gave you that tiny bit of hope that lifted you up? Now, you mentioned you got lifted up, but who or what lifted you up?
Yeah, I've had people say to me, you mentioned I've had my leg amputated, I had my foot amputated before that. I went through the interference, and people look at me and they're like, "I could never do what you did." And I always look at him, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Because you've already defeated yourself right out of the gate. You're telling me you couldn't do it. So you can't. I mean, why would you try anything in life with the attitude of, I can't do it? I mean, why even try? Why not just go home and, sitting on the couch and watch television or whatever you're going to do? Because, with that attitude, I mean, those are people that drive me crazy and people I don't want in my life. I try to distance myself from people like that. But I always talk about a couple things. One, the 3 F's, which for me are faith, family, and friends. I have a very strong faith in God. I realize a lot of people don't believe in that. But for me, it works, and I've always gotten the question of, do you blame God because you got cancer? And I sort of joke. I'm like, no, I don't think God got up on a Tuesday morning and looked at his to-do list and said, Terry Tucker, cancer, today. No, I don't think God did that. But I honestly believe that because of my faith, I have gotten through some very difficult and trying times. The other part is my family. I have when I initially found out my leg was going to be amputated and I had tumors in my lungs, it was suggested I do chemotherapy. And I was like, it's been 8 years. I've had a good run. I don't know. I said to my doctor, is this going to cure me? He's like, no, it's probably going to buy you some time, but it's not going to cure you. I'm like, I'm not afraid to die. I found my purpose in life. That's probably, another topic, to discuss. But I was like, no, I don't think I want to do this, but I'll go home and talk to my family. And it's just me and my wife and daughter. And I remember I got home, I said, here's the deal. And my daughter immediately, we got to have a family meeting. I'm like, family meeting? There's 3 of us. I mean, what do we need a family meeting for? But we all sat around the kitchen table and we talked about what was important, why I didn't want to do it. And they talked about why they wanted me to do it. And finally, my daughter's like, all right, let's have a vote. How many people want dad to have chemotherapy? And my wife and daughter raised their hand. And it really did kind of happen that way. But I remember back when I was in the police academy, our defensive tactics instructor had us bring a photograph of the people we loved the most to class. And as we were learning to defend ourselves, we were to look at that photograph because he reasoned you will fight harder for the people you love than you will fight for yourself. So he wanted you to realize that at 3:00 in the morning, when you get that, drunk call and the guy pulls out a knife, there's a husband or a wife or, a son or a daughter or a mom and dad that's at home that wants you to come home after your shift. So I think that's kind of important to realize that, and I think it's true, we'll fight harder for the people we love than we'll actually fight for ourselves.
I do like that a lot. It does happen because sometimes we don't know, the reason why we want to leave. And if there's things happen, like sometimes I do remember myself a couple of times before, because I had this problem with depression as well. I'm sure everyone does. Like everyone has their own depression. There are things that hit them hard. And when they reach a stage, or when I reach the stage, there's a point that says, okay, I'm going to give up on my life. I'm tired of this life. Bad things happen, and it's going to happen. And I decided to give up. And just like you said, when you reach the hospital, someone told you got cancer. Are you gonna get the cure for it? Spend more money on it? The issue there is money, right? Spend more money on it, or just go, right? In my case at that time, I'm always thinking, yep, that's it. If I reach that stage, I'm just gonna go, right? And then people tell me, yeah.
When I had when I found out I had these tumors and everything like that, I went to the cemetery, I went to the mortuary, I went to the church. And I planned my funeral. And I kind of got some brushback from people. People were like, don't you think that's kind of defeatist? And I kind of looked at them like, well, last time I checked, everybody's going to die. I don't think anybody's working on a cure for life right now. But I think the important thing about that is everybody dies, but not everybody really lives. And if you really live your purpose, you find the reason you were put on the face of this earth, and you live that, for me, death is not that scary, not something that I'm really terribly worried about. I'm almost excited to see what's on the other side of this life. And I remember there's a Native American Blackfoot proverb here in the United States that goes like this: when you were born, you cried and the world rejoiced. Live your life in such a way so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice. That's what I want.
Mm.
I want to live that life that I was put here for, and then I want to rejoice on what's on the other side of this. So death isn't really that scary for me.
I'm glad that you found a purpose in your life. Like you found it. I can see from you that you are different than what you had before. So I kind of wish somehow I could see you when you were down, so I can see the moment when you picked yourself up, and will actually help me or the viewers out there to see that, okay, if he can do it, I can too. So that's what it is. And you found it, and you said also because of your faith, right? Your faith in God. Um,
Sure.
I'm gonna say this, that there are a lot of people who do not believe in God,
Yep.
and therefore their purpose in life is more like, I don't know, get by every day in their life, right? I remember my dad told me that when he died, he wanted to at least have people in his funeral. Like, if there's only one person in his funeral, then I guess he kind of failed. So if he has 100 people in his funeral, like, that means he means someone. He means something to someone. And so I was able to go to my dad's funeral, and what he said actually made me more sad, because there wasn't actually anyone there except for me and his brother. So I'm like, no. So did my dad fail in his life, or was it something else? So that brought me down for a long time, because I felt like in my life, when I die, is anyone gonna be at my funeral? Like, if no one's gonna be there, I've done something wrong in my life. So that's how I felt my life should be. So when you said that we should live on, live in the moment, or some
But see,
people do live.
I'm not entirely sure I agree with that. And I'll tell you a story that I think maybe will illustrate this. A couple of months ago, I had a nurse that was taking care of me. And when I first met this nurse, she was in training in the unit that I am on. She was already a nurse, but she was in training for the unit. And a couple months ago, she came to me. She was taking care of me, and she said, "Terry, I've got a story that I want to tell you, but I'm a little nervous about telling you."
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Look, just tell me, just lay it out for me." And she said, "Okay." And she's about 25 years old, so she's still a young
Still young,
lady.
yeah.
And, and I said to her, and she said to me, "When I first met you, I was going to get out of nursing. I had a good friend of mine die, and I was in a very dark place. And I talked to my mom and dad, and I was going to quit nursing, and I was going to go to work for Amazon. And then I met you, and I saw what you go through. I saw all the pain that you have to endure every time you're here. And I heard your story, and I knew that I was in the right place just based on your story. How many people who look at you, Dominic, who you don't even know? I mean, you talked about your students. How many of your students look at you and say, I want to be like Dominic? But you never know that. You have
Exactly.
no idea how much your life has influenced other people. And if nobody shows up at your funeral, that doesn't mean your life didn't have purpose. There may be hundreds of people out there that you taught that are like, you know what, Dominic had had an important role in my life. So I wouldn't necessarily look at that and say, just because people don't show up at your funeral. I mean, I don't know how many people are going to show up at my funeral. I don't really care. I mean, I've been asked, how do I want to be remembered? I don't. I don't have any great, I mean, I'm just like any of the billions of people on this planet. There's nothing special about me. I'm just trying to put as much goodness, as much positivity, as much motivation, as much love back into the world as I possibly can. And then when my time comes, if 100 people show up at my funeral, if 2 people show up at my funeral, that's okay with me.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying, and I truly believe it. But sometimes, dark thoughts goes into everyone's head, and
Sure.
it makes the progress like, okay, this is what's gonna happen. Oh, but at the same time, I feel like I'm not gonna know who goes to my funeral. I'm already dead. Like, but
Right.
at the same
Exactly.
time, I feel like that thing actually, still penetrating my head and try to tell me, yep, this is what's gonna happen. And so I keep telling myself, like, I'm having dark times, and which is one of the reasons why I started my motivational show like this, because I want to motivate myself as well, motivate others, whoever gets a chance to watch the videos, to find a little bit of purpose in their life. And I do know it's difficult, which is why I need to come up here and actually tell people it's difficult, but somehow we meet people like you as a guest on my show that has accomplished many great things and hits you hard, and you went on and went on again. So there are real people like you out there, where most of the times we don't see people like you. We just hear them, and so we don't know. So yeah, I really like that. But there's a question that one of my friends actually asked me yesterday. He said, most of us people like me actually turn their life around only when we hit dark times. So I want to ask about you, because your life has been almost perfect, I guess. And then things happen. So before this, were you a motivational person at all? Or it was just a normal life until bad things happen and then you turn your life around? Well, I guess you couldn't say turn around, but you picked yourself up and do even more. So which one was it?
Yeah, I think, I look back on my life. I had, 3 knee surgeries when I was in high school. And, basketball was kind of my thing. I was very good at it without sounding conceited. And then I have these knee surgeries and I need to overcome that. And then, when I graduated from college, I ended up moving home for the next 3.5 years as I helped my mom care for my father and my grandmother, who were both dying of different forms of cancer. So I think there's, my dad was kind of my hero. I loved him. He and my mom gave us really, a very good upbringing. And, you look at all the tragedy that we all experience in life. Kind of goes back to the pain aspect of it. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is what we do with it. Yeah. Did we suffer? There's an old Winston Churchill quote, who was the Prime Minister of Great Britain during World War II. And he had a saying, he said, when you're going through hell, keep going. And, a lot of people would look at that and say, yeah, you've had some tough times in your life, but did you learn from that? And I always, I think tragedy or difficult times can do 2 things. Like you say, they can, debilitate us, where we can't get off the floor and, I'm just down and depressed. Or they can energize us, and they can make us stronger, and they can make us tougher, and they can make us more resilient. Our brains are hardwired to avoid pain and discomfort. We know that. It's a self-preservation mechanism. But the only way we're going to grow is if we step outside that norm. We step outside that situation. And I always tell people, if there's something in your heart, something in your soul that you want to do, and it scares you, go ahead and do it. Because at the end of your life, the things you're going to regret are not going to be the things you did.
Exactly.
They're going to be the things you didn't do. And by then it's going to be too late to go back and do them. So yeah, find those scary things in life and face up to them and move forward. Because if you do that, the next time something scary happens or difficult happens, you'll realize, hey, I was able to overcome this. Now I can overcome this. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But you're right. It's whatever hand you want to go down. Do you want to get down the rabbit hole of, now I'm depressed and it's terrible and I can't move on? Or do you want to go down the rabbit hole of, you know what? Yeah, this sucked, but I'm going to use that suck to make me a stronger person.
I have something similar that I told my students a couple of times when they do the presentation or do anything scary to them. I told them, you can embarrass yourself for 2 minutes or 5 minutes. I mean, that's great. Embarrass yourself. Or you can have the regrets of not doing it and figuring the whole time in your head, what will happen if I didn't do it? What will happen? Like I told them, if you see a girl or a guy that you like and you don't say anything, what's the point? You're going to be like, I'm not going to say anything. For the rest of your life, you're going to be wondering, is she the person for me or is he the person for me? We don't know until you go in and say, hey, I like you, or hey, I'm going to do this. And then if it tells you no or it hits you back wrongly, that's okay. You done it, right? You overcome that one part. So I told my students this all the time, even my children as well. Like whenever we go out shopping, I ask them to pay the bill. Okay, here's the money. Go pay the bill. I was like, what? Yeah, you gotta go do it. And the first few times, it's
you
like,
got to do things. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a professional football player here. Obviously, football in the United States is a little bit different than football around the world, but he had a great quote, and it's this: it's today I will do what others won't, so that tomorrow I can do what others can't. You take your students to get up there and embarrass themselves for 5 minutes. You know what? Tomorrow they're going to be able to do something even more difficult because they did that. They didn't just say, "Oh, I can't do it," and give up and quit. And there's another quote from I'm really going to date myself now. Back in 1976, a U.S. gold medal Olympic swimmer by the name of Shirley Babashoff, and this is what she said. She said, "Winners think about what they want to happen. Losers think about what they don't want to happen." And if you think about that, it's so true. Winners can override their brains and say, yeah, this is going to be tough. This is going to be difficult. I might embarrass myself, but it's going to be good for me. Whereas losers are like, oh, I can't see anything good coming out of this, so I'm not going to do it. Just a different way, just a different mindset of looking at things.
That is true. Getting the right mindset is so difficult, and trying to train yourself to have a good mindset is so difficult. Like I have my own bad mindset for a long period of time in my life, and I'm trying to switch it somehow to have a good mindset. And the trigger was because someone came to me and says, "Dominic, you are a depressing Dominic." I was like, "What?" I'm describing you as depressing Dominic. It's like, how am I depressed? And it's like, I look at you, you look depressed. I was like, no. Do I look depressed? Yes, you do. And I'm like, I thought I'm being real here. No, you're not. You're depressed. I'm like, okay. So that hit me real hard when she said it to me. And then I decided to reflect on my life. I was like, I guess she was right. So it kind of made me want to, do things even more after that. So that is kind of my hope right there. That's my pickup line for my lift up my life, because that was difficult for me.
Yeah, and it is difficult. I mean, if you think about the fact that we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts that go through our brain every day, and our brain can hold one thought at a time, I always say to people, why would you make that a negative thought? But the realization is, with all these thoughts going in, you have to cognitively be able to say, hey, that's a negative thought. I don't like that. I need to flip that switch. And it doesn't happen overnight. You kind of have to constantly focus on it, as I think and then once you do, eventually over time, the good thoughts, the positive thoughts will be in your brain and the negative ones won't. But it doesn't happen overnight. You can't just say, hey, I want to be positive tomorrow. I mean, you can, but those negative thoughts are still going to keep, filtering through your brain.
Of course, it's still going to keep coming. And I feel like even if we do good in this world, sometimes bad things still keep hitting you. And we just have to, slowly, slimmer it down and move on and get better at it. Which is why I ordered your book a couple of days ago as well. I'm still waiting for it.
Oh, thank you.
But it's going to probably take a while to get here, maybe a week or something. I haven't got a notification on it. But yeah, so everyone, this is Terry's book. So if you look at it on the page here, Sustainable Excellence, 10 Principles to Leading Extraordinary, Uncommon, 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life. Here's what I want to ask though. What is our extraordinary life that you mentioned here?
So maybe I'll answer that with kind of how the book came about.
Okay.
I think I've got a story for that. So I mentioned I was a high school basketball coach. I was a girls' high school basketball coach. And I had a player that moved to Colorado, where my wife and I live, with her fiance, and we had dinner with them. And I said to her one day, I'm really excited that you're living close and I can kind of watch you find and live your purpose. And she got real quiet for a while, and she kind of looked at me and she's like, well, Coach, what do you think my purpose is? I said, I have no idea what your purpose is, but that's what your life should be about. Finding the reason you were put on the face of this earth and then living that purpose. So that was one story, or one kind of impetus to write the book. And then I had another young man who reached out to me from college, and he said, what do you think are the most important things I should know to not only be successful in my job or in business, but in life? And I didn't want to give him the, get up early, work hard, help others. Not that those aren't important, they are. But I kind of felt they'd been done. And so I thought about it for a while, and I wrote some notes, and eventually I had these 10 principles. And so I sent them to him. And then I stepped back and I was like, I got a life story that fits under this principle, or I know somebody whose life emulates that principle. So literally, I had my leg amputated in April of 2020, started chemotherapy for the tumors in my lungs in June of 2020. And during that 3-month period, I sat down at the computer every day while I was healing, and I wrote stories underneath those principles. And that's pretty much how the book came about. But being uncommon and extraordinary, we're not all born with the same gifts and talents. Your talents are unique. My talents are unique. My wife's talents are unique. We're not all born with the same gifts and talents, but we all have the ability to become the best person that we're capable of becoming. And I talked to my player about, she asked me, she's like, well, what if I don't have enough time? What if I run out of time? And again, this goes back to my faith and believing that if God's going to put you on this earth to do something, he's not going to just pull the rug out from underneath you and say, nope, sorry, I'm not going to give you the time to do it. But I think you need to be open to that time with your heart. You need to search for your purpose with your heart, with an open heart. And I think that, that's not necessarily an easy thing. And my player asked, she's like, well, how will I know if I find that uncommon and extraordinary life, if I find that purpose? And I told her, I said, if you get up in the morning and you can't wait to go do whatever it is, that very well may be your purpose. And I guess maybe I should step back and say this: your purpose doesn't have to be your job. Your job could be what you do just to pay the bills, but your purpose, or, what's uncommon or extraordinary about you is, you're a writer, or you play music, or you volunteer, or whatever it is, that you feel in your soul is what you're supposed to do. So, I told her, I said, don't worry about time. Time will take care of itself. Just keep an open heart and keep looking for that purpose.
I'm going to take that message advice that you gave her for myself as well. And for all the viewers out there, this is great advice. I do want to say as well, because of culture difference in Taiwan and Asian countries mostly, most Asians tend to keep to themselves, even if things hit them hard. Like my dad is full Asian, and so when things hit him hard, he doesn't say anything. He just keep it to himself until it all breaks down. I guess most people I know, even students as well, they do it to themselves. They keep it into themselves. So I guess that's okay. We can't change that. I can't change that. So all I can say,
a culture. Yeah.
I know. So all I can say to people out there who are Asians like me, who are keeping things to themselves, listen to great motivational stuff. Pick yourself up. You have to pick yourself up. No one can do it for you. But I told my students, I can teach you all kinds of things, English, whatever, right? All languages, anything at all. But you will never learn until you decide to learn for yourself. And so I found that for myself as well. If I don't pick myself up, no one's going to be able to pick myself up. No one's going to be able to pick me up. They may give me a glimmer of hope, but I have to push myself up.
Yeah, but it goes back to, and we used to, my wife and I have always told our daughter this, play to your strengths. And if you're in a culture where you don't share your feelings, where my best friend growing up when I was young was Japanese, and I always was amazed whenever I would eat dinner at his house, because his parents always prepared. Everything was perfect. Everything was. I was just amazed. Here I am, this kind of greedy American, just belly up to the table and shovel it in. But for them, their culture was everything has its purpose, everything has its place, everything was. It just amazed me. I talk about that story in the book when you read it in that, but that was
It's coming
different.
soon.
That was a different culture than my culture. So play to your strength. If that's the way you are, don't try to change it. Use it to make you a better person.
Thank you, Terry. I'm definitely using that to make yourself be a better person. Everyone out there, please listen to this. Find your strength. Find your purpose. I guess that's the only way we can do it. Yeah. Well, thank you, Terry, for coming to the show. We're about time, 40 minutes in. So, again, everyone, when life hits us hard, what do? What can we do? We can do so much things, right? That's it. Terry, do you have anything you want to add on to this for the ending?
Yeah, let me tell you a quick story. And
Excellent.
I've always been a big fan of Western movies growing up. 1993, the movie Tombstone came out. I don't know if you saw it in Taiwan.
I know that one.
Yeah. It starred Val Kilmer as a guy by the name of John Doc Holliday, and Kurt Russell is a man by the name of Wyatt Earp. Now, Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp were two living, breathing human beings that walked on the face of the earth. They're not made up characters for the movie. And Doc was called Doc because he was a dentist by trade, but he was pretty much a gunslinger and a card shark. And Wyatt had been a lawman his entire life, a sheriff, a deputy sheriff. And these two men from entirely different backgrounds formed this very close friendship. And at the end of the movie, Doc is dying at a sanitarium in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, which is about 3 hours from where I live. And the real Doc Holliday died there. He's buried in the Glenwood Springs Cemetery. And Wyatt, at this point in his life, is destitute. He has no money. He has no job. He has no prospects for a job. So every day he comes to the hospital to be with Doc, and the two men play cards to pass the time. And they're at the end, in this scene, they're talking about what they want out of life. And Doc says, I was in love with my cousin when I was young, but she joined a convent over the affair, but she's all that I ever wanted. And he looks at Wyatt and he says, what about you, Wyatt? What do you want? And Wyatt says, I just want to lead a normal life. And Doc looks at him and says, there's no normal, there's just life, and get on with living yours. Dominic, you and I know people out there that are just sitting back and they're like, when this happens, I'll have a normal life. When that happens, I'll have a successful life. When this happens, I'll have an influential life. What I'm saying is, don't wait. Don't wait for life to come to you. Get out there, find the reason you were put on the face of this earth, and live that reason, because I promise you, at the end of your life, two things are going to happen. One, you're going to be a whole lot happier, and you're going to have a whole lot more peace in your heart.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, everyone, for those viewers out there who watched this show today. Please like and subscribe to the video. And if you want to check out Terry Tucker's book, you can find it on Amazon. You can go to his website right here, where I put it right here, motivationalcheck.com. Check it out. And also, we need to get a move on in our life. Don't let it stall everything. There's more great things out there for us to improve our life and to get better and to be more happy. That's it. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the show. Goodbye. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Dominic.